Hi, I'm Brent Ellergodt from Ellergodt Design. Thanks for joining us. Talking today with Elicia. She is our residential design manager at Ellergodt Design, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation about right sizing and how that applies to projects like renovations and new builds. I think the first thing we want to talk about is the right sizing myth and how is there a right size for everyone, or how do we
Mm-hmm.
determine that, and how do we help people
Mm-hmm.
determine that for their renovations and homes?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people hear about downsizing and think about like shrinking their house or getting smaller, which there's a time and a place for. But for a lot of people, it's more about right sizing, like thinking about how big your house actually should be.
Hmm.
Like we've all seen houses that, are way bigger than they need to be, or lived in a house that feels a little bit too small. Like, how do you find the right
Hmm.
balance? To
Right.
me, that's what right sizing means.
Absolutely. And each client has their own right size,
Mm-hmm.
there's not a general, oh, everyone needs a house of this size. I mean, if you look around Calgary, there's homes probably around 800 square feet, maybe even less, 700. They go up to 10,000 or
Yeah.
more. Some of those seem a little bit ridiculous, but
Yeah.
hopefully for those families, that's what they need for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important to make sure that you're thinking about what your family needs to make sure that you're getting the right space in the right areas in your house.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think that sort of comes down to the the myth of sort of keeping up with the Joneses sometimes. I think sometimes people think, oh, I need a certain size house. The right size for me is the same size my friend has. Or not that they're kind of trying to keep up with someone, but that's how they determine it. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, and that's what we're trying to do is help people, go through not only a design questionnaire, but through our design process where we're asking them really relevant questions to help them determine that. And not to say it always gets smaller or bigger, it just gets to that point where they feel like, oh, this is the right size for us.
Yeah, they'll give you a list of things they need and space they need, and it doesn't match the square footage they give you. Okay, so what's off about this? Is it the
Hmm.
budget? Is it the space you think you wanted? Or is it how you're actually going to use the
Hmm.
space?
Yeah. Do you think there's a square footage per person type scenario?
Not really. I think it really depends on every individual. Do you have specific hobbies that need specialty rooms, or do you spend all day glued up against your significant other? Like different people
Mm-hmm.
in different families will live in different ways.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a one size fits all at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think you hit on the head when you talked about like lifestyle, and each individual family even interacts together in a different way than another family.
Yeah.
I know, for example, I think of one client that we have, and they have a very, very large house, and there's four of them. You'd think based on that square footage there would be 14 or 18 of them, but there aren't,
Yeah.
right? And then we have other clients who are really trying to, what's the smallest home we can do for whatever reason, and hopefully that small square footage also meets their needs and, like you said, their lifestyle and how they interact. And some families hang out all the time together, and some families are
Yeah.
quite independent or have, like you said, hobbies that require very individual spaces. Let's talk about when to think about right sizing. Oh,
What kind of people do you think need to think about right sizing?
well, yeah, I would say everyone, and I think back to your point, it's really every client, whether they're doing a renovation or a new home, needs to think about, and I think most clients guess at the beginning what square footage they need, especially in new builds. We'll ask them, how big a home are you thinking about? And it's 4,000 square feet, five, whatever it might be, and they're really just going off of things like a TV show, or maybe they've done some research online on floor plans and it has all the components they want, or their friend has a home about that size, or their previous home. And I think that's a good place to start. You have to start somewhere, but I think everyone really needs to go through that exercise of um, coming to a conclusion that really is the square footage that they need. And I think I'd like to think, and I believe this very strongly, that that's what we do with our clients. We take them through a design process, and a lot of times they might say 4,000 at the beginning, and in the end it's five, and then, or sometimes it's 3,500 or 3,000, and they really didn't need that square footage.
Yeah, I think when you're designing something new is a great time to have that check in. And I also think that anytime your lifestyle changes is the right time to think
Mm.
about
Mm.
right sizing. Like if your kids move out, you're suddenly empty nesters, is your house still the right fit for you? Or say you're looking at a multi-generational situation and your aging parents are moving back in with you. That's going to be a big
Mm.
change for your lifestyle, right? So that's
Yeah.
another good time to think about how big does your home actually need to be
Yeah.
for how you were living in it?
You were talking about like lifestyle changes sort of on immediately or in the next in near future, but I think it's also important that we're asking our clients about 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Like, I mean, I think you're a great example. You've got 2 young daughters, and you're I know you've moved recently, so into a slightly larger house, I believe. So it's
Hmm.
kind of like, you probably, you and your husband were thinking about, what's the next stage of our lives? Like, how long can we live here? Maybe till
Hmm.
they're 18, and then maybe when they move on, maybe you guys will downsize. So it's,
Hmm.
I think we try to find solutions for our clients that, depending on how long they're going to be in that space
Yeah,
or
another
home,
good question.
yeah, like how long are you going to be there, and then let's design a home that will meet your immediate lifestyle changes, and then 5, 10, 15 years down the road, as your girls grow up, they might want some independence, and all of a sudden they're in the basement, or and you guys are wanting them there or
Yeah.
whatever, right? And they're having their friends over, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden life is different again in 5, 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So we made sure that we had a bit more space for the family as it is now, but also kind of thought about that. Like,
Hmm.
what are we going to do when we've got teenagers? Like, oh, and where are they going to, be able to hang out with their friends and stuff like that?
Hmm.
So right now we're still all living really close together, not necessarily using all the space in our house. So another thing I'm thinking about is that this space isn't being used to its maximum now, but I think it will be in the future. And that
Hmm.
was worth it for our family at the time when we were thinking about all this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely. What are some other demographics that you've worked with, Alicia, or come to mind that you can bring to light to kind of give some insight into the right sizing?
Yeah, one of the ones that we deal with a lot is this multi-generational living, and
Mm,
whether it's a cultural thing or family lifestyle thing. And honestly, I think it's just going to be more and more common with our aging population that maybe you've got parents that aren't ready to move into care but don't want to be on their own anymore.
mm,
So we've got a lot of kind of quasi basement suites, family suites in the basement or somewhere in the house, thinking about how the space of your house, whether it's through renovation or a new build, will allow for more people and also give those people a bit more of a buffer zone. Um,
hmm.
you might not want your mother-in-law in the bedroom next to you, for example. So maybe you're planning for them to be in a different part of the house.
Yeah, yeah. And the first thing that came to my mind is maybe where I'm at in life is,
Mm,
though we're not quite empty nesters, we're getting as close as possible, and though I like to think of myself as a do-it-yourselfer and someone who goes out to the garage and cuts wood on a table saw and thinks like I'm building something, that I strive for those kind of hobbies and those lifestyle changes that I want to incorporate in my
yeah.
life, and wish I would have done earlier.
Hmm.
But that's one of our questions on our questionnaire is like, what are your hobbies, or what are some things that we need to incorporate? I mean, though it may be really important or not as important for some people, but it could be pets, like even space for pets, or people have done shower stalls in the mudroom or garage. So and then back to, again, lifestyle and sort of hobbies, work, home offices, like how do you work? Are you working remotely, or are you working in the office? So there's so many aspects of different lifestyles that really affect one family and doesn't affect another.
Yeah, I think that work from home one's big too. There was, you know, 5 or 6 years ago, it really felt like the home office was on its way out and we were
Mm.
ruling
Hmm.
these things out. We weren't designing them anymore. They weren't going anywhere. And that's obviously changed
Yeah.
drastically.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a home office,
Yeah.
everyone's got a work from home space. And if that's still on your dining room table, then that's a lifestyle
Hmm.
change that is
Hmm.
probably not working great for your household right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, excellent. And I think, I mean, I can relate to this, but I think one of the situations that some families with adult kids or experiences is a boomerang, either generation or just it happens for a short period of
Yeah.
time. And having, just thinking about your kids. Some people are saying, hey, my child was away at this university, but now is back taking a master's in Calgary, and it's great that we have that space. So some of these things are hard to predict, but
Yeah.
sometimes maybe my advice would be is don't downsize so much to the minimum, because you might find that even that one little bed, the bedroom, the basement,
Right.
or something like that, that provides you with a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
Um, you might regret it if you're trying to cut down, like, and I love the concept of like a tiny house, but
Hmm.
I also think it's kind of like the minimum,
Yeah.
and then what do you do when,
What does your
you have
minimum
a
look like
baby?
though?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
And the
and
flexible spaces, I think, is a big big part of that, and making sure that it can adapt to different
Yeah.
needs.
Yeah. And if you are trying to, again, reduce your square footage greatly, there are, like you said, about flexibility. You're trying to make a room as multi-usable as possible. And, that can really make a difference when you come to not needing so many bed or so many rooms for every different activity. You combine them into a few spaces.
Yeah.
Let's start with renovations. What do you think right sizing looks like for within the renovation side of things?
I think when you're starting with the renovation, you're obviously starting within the footprint of what you've already got. So it's a different conversation. When we do a design from scratch, a full custom project, we're talking about right sizing from day one and how much space do you need. When we're doing a reno, we're starting at 50% almost, right? Like how do we work within the footprint we've got or within the space we have to add?
Yeah.
And that can look so many different ways, right? Do you go up or out, or where are your setbacks? What are the neighbors like? Where is there a tree in the backyard you want to save? There's so many things to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, depending on the age of your kids, they still might be using the backyard a lot. So you don't want to take up too much square footage or new square footage by taking up too much of that backyard. Is there an opportunity to go out some of it in the front? That sort of thing. And I think you mentioned something about going, is it better to go up versus out? And again, that's a really good scenario that we can help people kind of work through when it comes to, like you were saying, kind of through their local bylaws on what are the setbacks, what's the buildable area within your lot that enables you to get the square footage you want. And again, as you know, we've had clients that, all they need is, another family room, or, they don't even need the basement underneath it.
Primary suite.
Yeah, exactly. Or a primary suite. Exactly. Maybe they still need 3 bedrooms, but they want to just expand there so they get an ensuite and a walk-in, a bit more of a, a separation than some of the 1,100 square foot bungalows where it's kind of all the bedrooms are rammed together.
Yeah, I love the opportunity to take a existing home that people know so well, and they love their neighborhood and they love where they live. It's just not quite working right. Like, how do we make this house you've got perfect for you?
Absolutely. How is right sizing different for a new build?
Right sizing for a new build, I mean, you start from day one. You talk about what spaces do the people need? How do they work together, live together in the space? How like everyone puts a number on it to begin with. All the clients have an idea of what they think the space will be. But once you talk through the pros and cons of different situations, you kind of flush it out, right? And then usually we do several iterations on a custom plan. So sometimes it gets a little bit bigger after the first one. Sometimes people say, oh, that feels like too big for us, and pare back. And we've got lots of tools to help everyone visualize how that space will look throughout the design process.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a great benefit for clients, because we're able to show them in 3D, almost being able to walk through a model of their home. And, with furniture, windows, ceiling heights, that kind of thing that helps scale the space. I think they really have a good idea of the feel. This seems a bit too cavernous, or no, I don't think it's not quite the feel that I want in this house.
Yeah, what would you say about right sizing for a new build?
Well, one of the things that came to mind, I mean, I know you mentioned, right from the beginning, we go through that scenario of trying to help a client figure that out, and through the design process, showing them solutions to show them what they really need based on their lifestyles. I think what comes to mind is sort of the difference between, say, inner city home that has those sort of setback, like probably more limiting setbacks of, say a 50 by 120 lot. You got to put the garage on there. So there's bylaws like lot coverage, where a house can sit with certain setbacks, and that can limit the square footage. So sometimes to get the square footage you want, you're having to go with a third level.
There's a bit of a constraint.
Yeah, there's some constraint. And then we do other, as you know, we do some acreage homes that, they have a, 1, 2, 3, 4 acre parcel, and it's almost unlimited how big they can go. So that's, like I said, some have more restrictions on them, and others have almost a blank slate to kind of work through and open up those opportunities. One of the really important aspects of right sizing, I think, has to do with budget. So sometimes it's really just what people can afford. They might want a really large house, but really all they can afford is a small or smaller one. So I think I'm wondering, what's been your experience when you've talked to clients about, here's their wants and wish list and their questionnaire. and then the budget maybe doesn't reflect it.
hmm I think that it's important to remember that we are not estimators. We don't know what
Mm-hmm.
a house costs, and we do have, gut impressions on our experience over time. But different builders, different areas, different spec levels, they can vary. They can add variety to a price in a way
Mm-hmm.
that is really hard for us to know. Often when budget is going to be a limiting factor for a new design, we suggest they get a builder involved right away so that as we're going through our iterations of our plans, they're checking those plans over with a builder and getting a gut check with the builder. Are we still in
Mm-hmm.
line with kind of the financial side of it that we're expecting?
Mm-hmm.
So often when we get to the end of a design, unfortunately, clients are in love with their design and then they get it priced and it's a no-go. And so then okay, how do we right size this for
Mm-hmm.
budget in this
Mm-hmm.
case? Pull it back a little bit, making sure we keep the big ticket functional spaces, the stuff that's going to have the biggest value,
Mm-hmm.
while reassessing the pieces that are a bit more flexible.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I describe that to a client. It's like compromise, when you're just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, unfortunately you have to compromise now
Yep.
because you can't afford this and that's the reality. And it's a
Yep.
tough exercise to go through. But I think what you said about us promoting or really pushing or encouraging a client to bring in their builder as soon as
Mm-hmm.
possible in the design process is critical because we can kind of go off on, a design exercise and be the fun,
Yeah.
exciting people who are,
Yeah.
look what we're doing. And isn't this fun? And
Yeah.
they're collaborating and brainstorming with us and
We've
enjoying
got
the
no shortage
process.
of good
Yeah,
ideas.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And it's fun to work with clients. It's their home. We love
Yeah.
what we do.
Yeah.
We can get off, and if we're not careful, yeah, we can almost focus on that solely when really there's this sort of reality, like you said, a gut check, a reality check that a
Mm-hmm.
builder can provide. The other thing that we've mentioned in other podcasts is how important interior design is,
Yeah.
and I know that when Miguel gets involved, he's able to start to make selections that are based on a budget that's been
Right.
provided by the builder, which I think is critical because all of a sudden, again, if that's an aspect of design doesn't have the control within it, then again, that can go sideways too. And then,
Or you don't know what you're getting. If your
mm-hmm,
builder's giving you $1 per square foot, and what is that, laminate? Is that granite?
mm-hmm,
What
yeah,
appliances does that include?
right, yeah,
It's really tough to know if you don't have that interior design integrated in order to give that spec level to the builder.
right,
Otherwise, it's the
yeah,
builder's spec level, and you
yeah,
can work with that. That's fine,
mm-hmm.
but to have that control from the beginning is
Yeah,
important.
absolutely. And I think what sometimes happens is that we in the industry or a client might describe their needs and wants by, well, we're very middle of the road, or, it's a mid grade. Well, that
That
I don't
means
know what
something
that means.
different to
Yeah, like
everybody.
that's exactly. It's kind of like
Yeah.
saying what's square footage of or what size of house do you need? Well,
Yeah.
mid grade or, you know, more price conscious or high end.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? That's why again, we want to really promote the level of detail we put into our architectural drawings plus interior design to say this explains exactly what you're getting in your house, and a builder can specifically price that house almost to the dollar because we've gotten into so much detail into the amount of detail required for a very accurate price, and
Yeah.
if selections or the design needs to change, we can tweak it based on that budget that we're getting from the builder.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing on budget that's important to think about is different parts of the house have different costs. So we always kind of
Mm,
struggle. A client will say, like, well, what's the dollar per square foot?
mhm.
Well, the dollar per square foot of your living room, which is just drywall and a roof, is different than the dollar
Mhm.
per square foot of your kitchen.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of builders struggle to even, they don't want to give you a dollar per square foot price for all of these reasons. It's so hard to assess in that way. But that's one
Mhm.
way that we can think about if we're right sizing the square footage versus right sizing for cost, where we're pulling back to make sure that we're being efficient on the priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just a little added note on the price per square foot. I think where that comes from is sort of production builders or places where builders are building the same model over and over again, or we only have 5 models to
Mm-hmm.
build. And so they know what that price per square foot is because it's the same model every time.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're doing custom, like you said, we're not estimators, so we're relying on a builder.
Yeah.
They're giving Miguel allowances per area, like flooring and lighting
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. Um, every client is so different, and they should be. We're helping them design a home specifically for their lifestyle. Um, there is no, like, someone could say, I want a 3,000 square foot home and I want to be $300 a square foot. Well, that means your budget's $900,000. Well,
Mm-hmm.
then that's helpful to a builder, but then the client has to then be okay that Miguel is selecting materials that falls within the allowances
Mm-hmm.
to, have it turn out to be
Yeah, and to check
900,000.
in at the beginning if that's a reasonable dollar per square foot to
Hmm.
start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a bit about designing smaller homes.
Mm.
I think that's always a challenge, but how do we do that well? How have you found that in your career?
I love designing smaller homes. I think it's so fun to do the challenge of,
Mm,
making, especially if it's a custom, finding out what specific niche needs we want. Do we still have, a collection? We have to find a space to display. I think the important thing with smaller homes is not to forget about storage. We still want to have linen closets. We still want to have enough kitchen storage. All of those like high functional utility spaces of a house still have to work really well.
mm,
And then thinking about maybe it's the entertaining spaces where you're okay with having a cozy gathering or that kind of there's spaces that can stay big in order to stay functional
mhm,
and spaces that can get small and stay functional when we get into some of these multifamilies.
mhm,
So designing a row house, each unit is smaller, right?
mhm,
And so you have to be really efficient with circulation pathways and how do the stairs stack, and if there's suites, how to maximize those suites in the basement so that they still feel like comfortable places to live
mhm.
with the things that you need to
Right.
live in that
Yeah.
space.
I mean, when you were talking there, I was thinking about just the example of, say, bedrooms, and you think
Hmm.
about a primary bedroom in a smaller home, and I would say, you know, I'm not saying it has to be, only this big, but you could be maybe 12 foot by 12 foot, get
Hmm.
a king size bed in there, maybe a couple nightstands. It's not tight, but it's not oversized. And then I've done ones that are 24 feet by 24 feet, and
Hmm.
it's like, okay, if this, but you do
And
respect
everyone's
the
got a
fact.
different definition of what a small house means too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. 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 And I think that's where, again, I think of like a kitchen, great room, whatever, all the components and rooms in a house. Um, you add all of those up from, and you minimize them in a smaller house in a way, and then you maximize them in a larger
Hmm.
house. And somehow in the, if you're somewhere in the middle, you're really trying to find that balance of what are your priorities. Like,
Hmm.
it's like our family hangs out in the family room all the time. Well, maybe that needs to be a little bigger. But the bedrooms, like some parents would say, we're not in our bedrooms at all, apart from
Hmm.
to sleep. That's all. Other parents might say, no, our kids are in there doing their homework. Well, maybe they need a little bit more room, or they sit there and they read a lot. So again, back to very specific needs for each family is really important to flesh out as we take them through a design process and ask them those specific questions.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to also not just talk about square footage, because sometimes it's the feel of size.
Yeah.
Sometimes even, we've even in our house, for example, when we renovated it, just by opening, like enlarging some openings made a huge difference in the feel of the house. So it made us feel bigger
Yeah.
without having to add square footage.
Yeah.
And I think that's also something to consider, because a lot of older bungalows are very closed off,
Yeah.
very compartmentalized. But
And
as
that's a
you
sorry.
as you open up or move some walls, that makes a huge difference.
That's a really common renovation that we do on those,
Hmm.
typical 60s bungalows. Everyone's seen the neighborhoods of those all over Calgary. And we've done a ton of those
Hmm.
renovations and kind of know them, right? Like there's
Yeah.
going to be a beam here. The heat run's going to go there. We've got it figured out. So
Yeah.
most of the time when we go to do one of those projects, it's pretty, um, we are able to find the ways to make it feel more open,
Hmm.
even without adding space.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Alicia, do you think there are spaces that need to stay larger?
I think it depends again on lifestyle, like everything else we've been talking about, but you want to make sure those functional hubs are big
Mm.
enough. They
Mm.
don't necessarily have to be large, but um, do you have enough room for your whole family to take off their shoes and coats and hang them up without
Hmm.
stepping on each other
Hmm.
and causing a fight? Do you have enough room to store your coffee collection if that's the thing
Hmm.
that you're into in the morning? It's those kinds of functional spaces. Maybe laundry is not a priority for you. That's okay to put in a
Hmm.
closet, but maybe you want to have a full wet bar.
Hmm.
Great. Let's
Yeah.
balance those two things out and
Yeah.
make sure that it's the right thing for you.
Well, just yesterday we met with some new clients,
Mm,
and that mudroom came up, and they were like,
yeah.
Well, it was the mudroom and the laundry. They said, we don't care where our laundry is, just so it's there conveniently. But
Yeah.
other people would say, no, we need a specific, it needs to be a huge
Yeah.
laundry. I hang things,
Yeah.
to dry, or you know, I need two laundry rooms. Like
Yeah.
some people have it one on each floor.
Yeah.
So, again, back to each person with a different lifestyle, different needs. Maybe they've got more kids, or another family I just recently met with talked about, right now they've got like a very small mudroom, and they're looking to expand and have a much bigger one. But they're talking about all the activities that they have, like they're huge skiers. And then, some people are like, another client was a hockey player. So this wife was like, where are you going to put your hockey equipment? Or,
Outside.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So again, those are the kind of things where if you're doing something custom, then think about those things within your lifestyle. It maybe isn't quite what you wish it was right now.
Yeah.
Like for me, it'd be like, I want a double garage with some room for my equipment, my table
Hmm.
saws and stuff like that.
And I
To,
want the mudroom.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want the mudroom. Like you said, I mean, I think you and I have probably had those homes where
Yeah.
our mudroom is really the landing at the back of the stairs, and three kids come in there, two kids come in there, and you're like, hopefully no one falls down the stairs,
Yeah.
and you realize, oh, in the next house maybe we'll have just a slightly larger mudroom will be fine.
Yeah, so there's definitely spaces that I think can get smaller, like your
Hmm.
question, but I think you want to make sure that it's the right spaces and you're not sacrificing a minimum.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we would help you guide through that too. Like if you say cooking isn't important, that's fine. We can do a small kitchen, but we will help you figure out what the
Hmm.
smallest reasonable kitchen is.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, again, back to interior design, sometimes Miguel can help you select appliances that are the most appropriate, that actually help you save space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? By maybe instead of doing a 6 burner, maybe a 4 burners based or large enough, because based on how you cook, or how
Right.
you do meals as a family, or something
Yeah.
like that. So Alicia, how can homeowners start thinking through some of these things about right sizing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's those three things that we've talked about is either your renovation, the footprint of your existing house, or your site.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a new site, what are the constraints of the site? Your budget, how much are we either adding or renovating, or how big of a house are we looking at from a budget point of view? And then obviously the lifestyle. We've been
Mm-hmm.
talking about that over and over,
Mm-hmm.
is that all of these things come down to really analyzing how you use your space. When you come in and first go down this journey with us, I think it's important to be really open about budget. It's important to be really
Mm-hmm.
open about the lifestyle that you want to have in this house. We're not here to judge. We've seen it all at this point. Between our office, we've got tons of years of experience, um, and I wouldn't want you to hold anything back from sharing with us.
Mm-hmm.
We've had people that share two primary suites
Mm-hmm.
later in life. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Let's do
Sounds
it. Like,
good.
I don't have any issues with that, and I don't know whether this is podcast appropriate.
Yeah.
There's like people have come in asking for a party shower. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't
Yeah.
hold back.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
tell us what you need. Tell us what will make this your dream house.
Yeah.
And that's the only way we'll be able to go
Yeah.
through it with
Absolutely.
you.
I mean, on a not a simpler kind of lifestyle thing, but some people, like my wife and I, are quiet people. We don't entertain a lot. There's other people who have people over all the time. Well, even those kind of lifestyle um, choices are really important, to say, well, how big a family room do you need? Instead of all of a sudden you move into a new home or a renovated home, and you invite all your friends over, and you're like, oh my God, this is way too small. We didn't think this through correctly. And like for Carol and I, we just sit on the sofa and hang out, and maybe our kids come over. So our life might be a little bit simpler. Maybe our home can be a lot smaller than
Yeah.
some people who, have friends, family. Some families hang out all the time, not us.
Yeah.
So there's that side of just, I think that's what I was going to bring up, was I think often what people do any naturally is they think about their current situation. So that could be the home they're about to renovate, or the home they want to build. Is they're thinking about, what is our lifestyle now, and is there a way that our new custom home might increase it or improve on it, or we need it to be exactly the same as this because it's so great. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's really important to say, where are we currently? What would we do to change this place? And then that can help us come up with design solutions that meet those, like you said, changing needs or lifestyles that
Yeah.
could be better suited or better provided for by really good design, whether that's a room, a space, better cabinetry, storage, all those kind of things that just add to someone's lifestyle.
Yeah. I think that some people come in with a new project in mind, with right sizing being the intention. Like,
Mm,
our house is too small, our house is too big, we are going to do this. And some people it's completely different. We want to move to this acreage, or we want to
hmm
live across the street from the school, whatever it might be. They're not thinking about right sizing because they're thinking about the park, or the new lot, or the new neighborhood. So it's still important to think through all of these things and make sure that you're being conscious about your true needs in the space.
hmm hmm Excellent. Let's talk a bit about home sizes and planning for the future.
Mm.
How do you see designing for the future without overbuilding or over designing?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of these same lifestyle changes that we're talking about, right? So right now you might be in one life cycle and know you can see down the road, okay, that is what's coming down the road. How do we anticipate that and design it in without trying to do every single thing? Like,
hmm
and so to me, I think that would be about finding flexible spaces. Maybe right now you've got children in their own bedrooms, but once they move to the basement or to college, maybe that's where your craft room, you finally
hmm
get to set up the
hmm
craft room. I've got clients where we've got water lines roughed into the closet because she's going to put in her craft room and sort of almost kitchenette in there with a sink and all of that
Wow.
kind of stuff, so
Yeah.
she can have her craft spaces in there once the kids are gone.
Yeah.
So those spaces that can transform.
hmm
And then maybe a guest room in the basement is designed as a guest room now, but you've got laundry roughed into the closet. So if it
hmm
needed to be multi-generational set up in the future, the person living down there could still have that independence.
Yeah.
Little touches like that add that, um, make it a bit more dynamic.
hmm Yeah. I think it's important that clients, maybe for simplifying that, could think of what are our immediate needs and wants and based on lifestyle, and then think, like, say 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And if they sort of go by those time frames, I think that's significant enough time to see, maybe not drastic changes, but you think about how your kids change over 5 years. It comes from elementary school to junior high, or from junior high to senior high. Like, things change drastically, personality wise, and their needs and wants. So that the 5 year plan or the 5 year evaluation is, I think, a good um, time frame to be thinking about, 0 years now, five,
Mm-hmm.
10, 15, just to sort of say, well, how will my life be changing? How will our family's life be changing as we move
Mm-hmm.
forward? And how might my hobbies, or, yes, there's not quite enough room in this house or my future house for that craft room, but there
Yeah.
will be once my kids leave, or
Yeah. There's an option to adapt it to that
hmm
need because we've thought
hmm
about it from day one, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think another, maybe not right sizing as much, but another thing to think about from long-term planning is, if you're in the empty nesters phase now, that 5-10 years down the road is kind of more of an age in place. And so then we're thinking about, is there an elevator rough in,
Mm.
or is there you main floor living designed into, things like that, um, is important to consider in that future proofing.
Yeah, yeah. One of the scenarios that I thought of was, it might have been one of your projects, but it was a Fernie home where clients were wanting a home as a vacation home,
Mm,
and then, but they also knew in 5 or 10 years this was going to be, they would be retiring and actually living
moving
out there.
there.
So how do you design something currently that is your vacation home, that you're there every weekend or every few weekends, and a couple weeks over the summer or winter, and then how do you design it? Because that lifestyle is probably different than how different is our life going to be when we're retired and all we're doing is enjoying life and,
Yeah.
getting out on the mountain bikes and those kind of things, or skiing, right? And
Yeah.
in that case, the husband was an avid mountain biker or biker, and he wanted one of it, they had a triple car garage, and one of those bays was for just him to work on his bikes.
Yeah.
And then
It's a workshop.
the wife in this case was an artist, and she had a bonus room. And it was really great to see how they could, kind of think that through to say, does this meet our current need of a vacation home? But then look down the road 5, 10 years when they're moving out there, and their kids are now coming to visit and they're there full time.
Yeah. It's such a, I mean, building a new house is such an investment in everything that I can just imagine. Thinking through all these lifestyle things must be so difficult for our homeowners. And it's draining to think, okay, this is how I live now. I really need to spend the time and analyze. And that introspection is difficult, but it's so important if you want to get the right thing and not just the thing you assume you're supposed to want based on what Pinterest is showing you this week.
Right. Yeah. That's a whole nother podcast right there.
Yeah. I think making sure that you're capturing the things that you value most. What is going to be the most important thing for you at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And again, comes back to custom, comes back to individuals and group, a family of individuals with their specific needs versus another family.
There's a reason you're going through this process with us instead of buying a house off of MLS or in a new neighborhood off of the,
Their
off the wall.
Yeah.
We're going through all of this so we can make sure that it properly fits exactly the way you want it to.
Yeah. I think right sizing isn't, like we said, isn't about a certain square footage. It's really about going through and analyzing and working with us to determine what that right size is for you. There's no right size. It's, every person has a square footage that they need. It's really about, based on your lifestyles and how, the hobbies and how your family interact and that sort of thing. Any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's about approaching the design process with intention and really being deliberate about what is going to be the most impactful and where to devote that space inside your house.
Awesome. Well, on that's a great way to end. I think that was a great comment. And thanks very much for joining me, Elicia. I really appreciate you being a part of this podcast.
Yeah.
And loved our conversation. Hopefully it was helpful for you guys out there. Thanks for joining us. If you'd like to reach out to us with any questions, comments, or inquiries, we'd love to hear from you. So please go to our website at beginwithdesign.com. Give our office a call at 403-242-2704. We look forward to hearing from you, and hopefully you can join us on our next podcast.